My name is Issa Diallo, and I'm presenting with David and Nikki. The presentation is on the U.S. accusing Vietnam of currency manipulation and the real crisis that's going on right now in Sri Lanka. This is the highest bill you can get of the Vietnam dong, which is 500,000. It's crazy. And this picture on the right shows like the Sri Lankan citizen protesting. You can see that's fires, people fighting for their lives. For my part, I'll be focusing on the accusation. So basically, the U.S. Department of Treasury accused Vietnam because they think that um, the Vietnamese government is purposefully undervaluing their currency in order to gain an export advantage over the U.S., which would which would then boost up like the trade surplus between like the two countries, between the U.S. and the Vietnam. So in one of the articles that I read on Diplomat, saying that Vietnam's trade surplus with the U.S. has risen steadily from 38.3 billion in 2017 to 39.4 billion in 2018 to 55.7 billion last year, and according to the U.S. Treasury data. This also says that in 2020 it was on track to reach a record high of 65 billion. So as you know about trade surplus, like if a country has a trade surplus, like that's not like legally allowed by both of the bilateral countries, then it poses like another country like at a disadvantage at this point. So this is the reason why that the U.S. is accusing Vietnam of currency manipulation, and also like when talking, and they also believe the U.S. believe that Vietnam is like purposefully like making their money depreciate, but in reality that's not the case. This graph shows like the rate exchange rate between like the USD and the VND. Also from like from the past 5 years, like there wasn't really that much difference in between, like that, like the money didn't depreciate as much as the U.S. Treasury thought. The U.S. Treasury thought like it posed a threat on like the United States government. Just shows like it's just a big accusation, and David is gonna go more in depth on what some of the reason why and how it's gonna end.
So the real value of dong has been stable against the dollar since 2015. Then what is the real cause of such large trade imbalance between Vietnam and United States? It's FDI, foreign direct investment. The World Bank data shows that it has grown significantly in the recent years. Then why did it increase? It's largely due to rising labor costs in China and trade frictions between the United States and China. U.S. tariffs on China's exports redirected FDI to Vietnam. More companies built factories in Vietnam and produced goods to export to the United States and the world. So the main crime of Vietnam is that it was in the right place at the right time and took advantage of global developments in which they have little influence. Also, overall U.S. trade deficit grew from all over the country, from all over the world in the recent years. A large tax cut and full employment in the United States in 2017 increased demand and contributed to the growing trade deficit. The overall U.S. trade deficit is largely caused by excess demand and a strong dollar. Then why did Trump attack Vietnam? It was mainly for a political purpose. Section 301, which authorizes the president to take appropriate retaliatory actions against foreign government in regards to U.S. commerce, was initiated October 2nd, 2020. That was near the election. So the United States allegation was that Vietnam is committing currency manipulation in 2019 and depreciated its currency by about 5%, as shown in the graph. It's supplying the Vietnamese dong in the forex market and buying up the foreign currency. This is what is often called a BOP surplus, as central bank sells its own currency and buys foreign reserves. So more Vietnamese dong in market leads to depreciation of the VND as supply increases. But it's hard to really know what is the fair exchange rate, and also to talk about the real value of the currency, you have to take into account of inflation. Vietnam recently had nearly 40% higher relative inflation, but the currency actually depreciated by only 24%. So therefore, the dong appreciated in real terms, curbing exports. So if Vietnam has been manipulating its currency, it has been keeping it overvalued and making it harder to export, and not easier. And the graph shows the expected and actual currency depreciation of a couple of Asian countries, and you can see Vietnam actually depreciated less than expected. The graph on the left shows the Vietnam's trade balance over the recent decade, and you can see from 2015 the Vietnam has been seeing surplus, and this has caught Trump's administration's attention. The graph in the right shows the reserves in month imports in various Asian nations, and you can see Vietnam's ratio of foreign exchange reserves to imports is lower than that of many other Asian nations, which is odd because if you think that they have depreciated Vietnamese dong by providing Vietnamese dong in the forex market and buying up foreign reserves, then this number should have been the opposite. So in Biden administration, Vietnam has reached an agreement in July 2021 with the United States, pledging to refrain from the competitive devaluation of its dong currency in order to gain an export advantage. This reflects the reduced priority the new United States administration puts on bilateral trade balances and the recognition that Vietnam is negotiating seriously and has significant value in a regional context. Washington and Hanoi have been a steady strategic convergence due to their common concern about Chinese assertiveness in the region, from the upper Mekong River to the South China Sea. So in the future, the United States has to have a clear goal.
Hi, my name
If the
is
goal
Cesar
is to
Diallo,
contain China's growing
and I'm
influence in
presenting
world
with
supply
David and
chain,
Nikki.
this assembly
Presentations
factories
on
for garments, shoes, and
the U.S.
electronics
accusing
relocating in Vietnam
Vietnam
is a
of currency
positive sign
manipulation
for the United
and
States.
the real crisis
And for
that's going on right
Vietnam,
now in Sri
as it
Lanka.
promises to allow the
This
currency
is
to
the
float,
highest bill you can
dong
get
can
of the
appreciate and
Vietnam
hurt many
dong,
domestic
which is
farmers and exporting
500,000.
industries in the
It's
future.
crazy. And
Vietnamese government can
this
support them
picture on the
through
right
their
shows
central
like
budget to ease their
Sri
burden.
Lankan citizen protesting. You can see that's fires, people fighting for their lives.
Hi everyone, I'm going to be talking about Sri Lanka's economic crisis.
For my part, I'll
Sri
be
Lanka
focused
has
on
defaulted on a
I'll be focusing on
multi-million
the
dollar foreign
accusation.
debt payment, deepening
So
the nation's
basically,
worst economic crisis since it gained
the
independence
U.S.
in
Department of
1948. The
Treasury
country has only a few
accused
weeks of foreign exchange
Vietnam
reserve left
because
to import even
they think
essentials
that
such as fuel, although
they
it can be
think that
blamed on the
the
COVID-19
Vietnamese
crisis and
government
the
is
loss of tourism that
purposefully
was put on the
undervaluing
country.
their
There is
currency
more to
in order
it.
to gain an
Sri Lanka's
export
economy is heavily
advantage over the
dependent on a
U.S.,
few sectors that
which
make
would
the most of their money from tourism, tea, and some other
which would then
agricultural products. The tourism sector
will stop
alone
like
contributes to 10%
the
of the
trade
country's
surplus
GDP.
between like
So
the
it's obvious that
two
when the
countries
pandemic
between
hit,
the U.S. and
not many people visited the
Vietnam.
country,
Vietnam.
and this sector suffered badly.
So
The
in one of
economy
the
shrank
articles
by
that
3.6%
I
in
read,
2020.
Diplomat
In an attempt to lower
saying
import
that
bills due to
Vietnam's
fertilizer
trade
purchases, the government
surplus
decided to put
with
a
the
ban
U.S. has
on the
risen steadily
fertilizers.
from
This further hit the
38.3
tea
billion in
plantation hard as
2017
tea
to
exports accounted for
39.4.
a major chunk of the country's dollar earnings. Tea is Sri Lanka's single biggest export, which constitutes 10% of the country's total export income. This led to the widespread of crop failure. So Sri Lanka had to supplement its food stock from abroad, which made its foreign currency shortages even worse. Sharp declines in agricultural products have resulted in a rapid price increase for food items like rice and vegetable, which directly impacted the household economy and the food security for the most vulnerable people of Sri Lanka. For months, Sri Lanka had lacked the foreign currency to buy all that it needs from abroad. Shortages of food and fuel have caused prices to soar. Inflation is now running at 30%. There have been power cuts, and a lack of medicine has brought the health system to a verge of collapse. People started protesting out in the streets from early April, and is currently protesting across the whole island. Sri Lanka's foreign currency reserves have virtually run dry, and it can no longer afford to pay for imports of food and fuel. The country now imports $3 billion more than it exports every year, and that is why they're running out of foreign currency reserves. At the end of 2019, Sri Lanka had $7.6 billion of foreign currency reserves. By March 2020, its reserves went down to $1.93 billion, and recently the government said that the figure had fallen to only just $50 million. And as you can see on this graph, they had the foreign currency reserve high, and like by May 2020, even May 2020, and then by January 2022, it's like very lower than it was in the past year. Sri Lanka's government currently owes $51 billion in foreign debt. The country's massive foreign debt burden, particularly to China, is one of the country's most critical matters. It owes China about $5 billion in debt. Sri Lanka's debt to GDP ratio stands at 80%. The government is seeking emergency funds from the IMF for $3 billion. It becomes important for India to rescue Sri Lanka from going into China's hands. As a result, India's relief package of $900 million comes for a deal where a major port of Sri Lanka will be leased to India. These strategic ports could be used to store oil and fill vessels. If China traps all of Sri Lanka's ports, India could be in big trouble during events like a war, which could in turn lead to instability in the stock markets. India has committed to give Sri Lanka 65,000 tons of fertilizers and 400,000 tons of fuel, with more fuel shipments expected in May. Thank you so much for watching our presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Here is our references. Have a good day.